I mentioned I was going to give you some techniques for this. The abbreviation I'd like to use today is STP. If you've got a pen, you want to write these down, you won't remember them. And I'm going to be recommending videos, movies, books that you can read and research that I've done that will convince you that this is absolutely the way to go. STP stands for signals, technique, and progress. Signals, technique, and process. And if you use this STP process, you'll be much further ahead with your persuasion abilities. So signals are about tone, everybody. We're talking now about that give and take that happens before you actually start the persuasion, right? How are you? Tell me about yourself. Where did you take your last trip to? What do you like to do for fun, right? That kind of give and take is very, very useful versus the data dump, starting right away with the data dump. I prefer something called open questions. So the difference between an open question and a closed question. Closed questions are often called binary questions. They only have two answers, yes or no. Open questions cannot be answered that simply. The other person would have to explain themselves a little bit. They'd have to talk to you, right? So I'd rather ask you, how has your family been faring during COVID rather than how are you feeling today? Because how are you feeling today, the default answer is always going to come back, fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And they might ask me how I'm doing, and the answer is fine. We're not getting anywhere here. So if I say something like, how is your family faring? Do you have a spouse or a partner at home? Do you have children? How do they feel about all this? Now we've got this kind of give and take, and I can learn a little bit about your natural habitat. That's very helpful. Open questions help you get that done. And then finally, it culminates in the reverse presentation. Once I feel like I have enough information about you to understand at least the basics about where you're coming from, I can then start my presentation. Now, my presentation will also be using internal signals to monitor, almost like a GPS, like I'm on a journey. And I'll be using things that we call in the sales trade trial closes, anchors, right? These are things that we can use to get the other person to tell us we're on the right path. An anchor might be, does this sound good to you so far? A trial close might be, does Rotary sound like it might be a good fit for you? Because I don't want to keep talking about it for another 20 minutes if you already belong to Kiwanis and there's no chance you're ever leaving Kiwanis, right? I'd like to talk about something else. So these are some of the techniques that can be used. The T in STP stands for technique. I want to show you a couple of techniques for active listening. Some of you are doing it right now. Harriet on the screen is doing it. Harriet, don't move. You're doing a technique called the thinker pose, and all of us can do it. I see that Shannon is doing it right now as well. The thinker pose, everybody, is just done by, and we can all do it together. Thank you, Richard Spong, you're doing it. Just move one of your hands very slowly to your chin like this, everybody. That's it. And you might nod your head just slightly, right? It doesn't mean you agree with me necessarily. It just means you understand me or that you're listening to me, right? And this is active listening. There's no more powerful signal to send another person that you care about them than to do this while they're talking, right? It's just, I'm listening to you. This is fascinating. Thank you very much. So a lot of people think it's corny, but this is the type of nonverbal confirmation that precedes and is embedded in a good sales presentation. So active listening is important.